Our next guest is here because yesterday we commemorated the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. He is Martin Pepela, the Member of Parliament. Martin Pepela, the Member of Parliament for Webuye East Constituency. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat of the situation.
Thank you so much.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Unasikiaje?
Niko salama kabisa.
Very good.
It has been a while, but tumerudi.
Very good.
Yeah.
This gentleman here called C.T. Muga has the day's proverb.
And our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Eritrea, whose capital is Asmara. Now, do you know what is actually very interesting? They don't have what you may ordinarily refer to as a national language. They have working languages. They have Tigrinya, they have Arabic, and they have English.
Tigrinya, Arabic, English.
Those are the working languages. Now, Tigrinya are a community. They comprise 50% of that population. Then they're the Tigrians. Then they're around 30%. Then other brothers and sisters follow. Okay? An interesting country, this one. Right. The proverb. A fly that does not listen often follows the corpse to the grave.
A fly that does not listen often follows the corpse to the grave.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
I think really, of course, nobody has a monopoly of knowledge and understanding. It's always important that you listen to your elders, you listen to people who came before you and people who are ahead of you for you to progress. But if you don't do that, then utazama. So I think that's my understanding.
Titi?
You know, when we came up with this idea of asking our guests what they think of the proverb, I could not have imagined just how enriching the experience would be, because I keep hearing things that I have not thought of at all. at all. I'm thinking, isn't that an interesting way of looking at this thing? Yes. But then, Mheshimiwa, when one gives the opinion like you have, we have to tell you thank you. And you're very right. Yes. Because with your opinion, you can't be wrong.
Exactly.
It is your opinion.
That's right. So, Mheshimiwa Pepela, yesterday was the International Day of Persons with Disabilities.
Yes.
It was commemorated globally.
Yes.
Of course, there were various commemorations in the country. Tell us about it.
Of course, I think this is a day that was established way back with the UN. And they said rightly that it's celebrated globally in Kenya, also Kenya being part of the Community of Nations. We celebrated, though I did not attend because of other issues. You know, for a long time I was at the center of the disability agenda. But then when I was elected, and I started playing the mainstream politics, and so sometimes I find myself engaged
national agenda
with the constituency politics and all that. So, but I hope my friends celebrate. But this is a day for us to really just take stock of the progress we have made in terms of pushing the disability agenda, in terms of mainstreaming the disability agenda within the larger political mainstream, the larger economic agenda, the larger social agenda. So I think really one thing I'm happy is that I remember way back in 2006, immediately after my school, my secondary school, and I sat with my friend Isaac Maura, the current now government spokesperson. There's another friend of mine who works with the National Council for Poor Disabilities called Alex Mnyere. Another friend of mine now, the judge of the Court of Appeal, Ngugi. And we used to start, that time, you remember that's the time when we had these killings of people with albinism in Tanzania. And so we ask ourselves now, what can we do? How do we ensure that really, finally, people with albinism and people with abilities in general can also be able to live a life like any other person in the Republic of Kenya? And that time, we had just established an organization called the Albino Society of Kenya. The only thing we had in our hand was the certificate of the organization. And yet, we were supposed to push for the disability and the albinism agenda that time. But the only thing we had was a certificate. But I'm happy that many years down the line, the dream that we had at that time of ensuring that people with disabilities are also represented in all spheres of life, in all arms of government, in the legislature, the judiciary, the executive, has come to pass. Is alive now, and it is true. That today, personally, I'm in the National Assembly with many. I think we are around 8 elected members of the National Assembly. When you go to the executive now, my friend Maura is there as the spokesperson of government, and many others. When you go to the judiciary, Judge Laibuta is in the High Court. Mumbi Ngugi she's in the Court of Appeal. So I think really we've made a lot of stride. You also agree with me that before our election, especially, personally, actually I was nominated in 2013 as MCA. 2017, I came in as an elected MCA. Actually, by the way, 2017, it was a bit difficult for me because no party trusted that I can deliver that seat to win. I can win. I tried various parties to give me tickets, but they refused. I remember even others. I remember even one of the senior government person today, official today, he called me. That time he was a party leader. He called me and he told me, Martin, sasa wewe mko na viti zenyu hapo. So wewe saidia huyu and tutakunominate sababu yenyu iko. I asked him, boss, you see, the person you're telling me to support is around 60 years. Now between me and him, we're supposed to be nominated. We need lighter duties. I told me, no, please, you step down. Let's give this guy the nomination certificate, then I will nominate you. I told him, I'm not stepping down. I'm ready to go full throne. We finish this thing. If you guys don't deny me certificate, then I'll go as independent. And really, by the way, they denied me that certificate. Of course, if we went, if we had a free and fair nomination, I could have won that that nomination. But they denied me certificate. I went in as an independent candidate. So 2017, and I won.
Yeah.
Even 2022, by the way, same thing played out. There's another, because he's a friend and now he's a boss today.
He's a big boss.
Okay, big boss. I can't mention him. But he called me again. 2020. Told me, Martin, now I want you to do one favor for me. I'm your what, boss? I want you to step down because you've shown interest to run for a member of parliament. I want you to step down and you support this other guy. So if you form government, I'll call you to Nairobi and give you a position. But for now, I want you to step down. And still with the notion that I can't deliver that. That's it. That's why I moved from that party of his now to Ford Kenya. And so while we have achieved a lot as persons with disability and disability fraternity, we still have so much to do in terms of just changing these negative dogmas, this negative attitude around the capability and capacity of people with disability to also be able to perform on the same base like others and even do better.
Yeah. So there's always been the conversation, and uncomfortable for lots of people sometimes, whereby there is a quota, right? There's a quota that then must be filled.
Exactly.
Whether it is at an institutional level or whether it's at government level.
Yes.
Now, did that help to then establish what people with disability can actually deliver? Kind of like what affirmative action does. You forcibly, quote unquote, put someone in a position in order to prove that or to disprove what you've believed all the time. That the same thing you've said just now, Mweshime, that people said, can this guy actually deliver for us because of 1, 2, 3? But if you put somebody in a position, will you almost then guarantee that other people will see what they can or cannot do, but you must give them the opportunity first? Has that helped to change the outlook of many people?
And of course, to a large extent, it has helped us, especially the affirmative action agenda, because it has given us a platform. Many of us have been given a platform. The only problem is that it has also isolated us. It has created another perception that we have our seats.
Special seats.
Special seats, yes.
Which is, again, different from the women and the youth. Women are being seen as you can be nominated and run and rise to be a member of parliament. And that's why, if you are keen, even after the 2022 election, even after the rest of us, people with disabilities, increasing our number of members who have been elected through single constituencies in National Assembly, because initially there were 4, today we are 8, double. If you listen to both sides of the political divide, both sides, what do you call it, the party leaders, none of them celebrated the increase of the number of people with disabilities being elected in the National Assembly, or even the county assemblies. The celebration that was there was just around the women. Yes, but none of us were. The rest of us were not celebrated, just because still we are not. What do you call it? The political class is not really appreciating our contribution of people with disabilities to their election or to their occupation of the seats they are having today.
Do you think, Mheshimiwa, that's because the people with disability are not yet many enough who have a strong voice and a loud voice? If you look at the agenda, there are many people in that space who have amplified that voice. So there are many people from very many quarters, from the civil society to leadership to government who are talking constantly about gender. But the question of disability, you only have a few people who occupy those positions of leadership.
Yeah, that's true. I think really this also emanates from the fact that persons with disabilities, even their own census is not clear in terms of how many we are. There's so much guesswork around. We are 10% of population. We are what? But there's no clarity in terms of the number of people with disabilities. And two, because of that, again, we are not seen as a serious political capital for anyone to invest in. Unlike now, women whose political capital is clear and it can be seen.
It's 50%.
It's 50% of the population and all that. So really, for me, the biggest problem is in terms of our political capital. Is not really enough to be able to attract the big men in the country to also go for the disability and also invest in them. So I think really for me that's where the problem is. So that even if a few of us can speak, can walk around and work around these political leaders or the party leaders or the big men, still they cannot really appreciate as such. But me, I'm happy. Like my own party today, Speaker of the National Assembly, who is my party leader. I think he has demonstrated since his election as a speaker that it is possible to also have a person with albinism, a person with disability around you to push your agenda. That's why if you are keen, very few places Speaker can go without me. I'm always there. The Member of Parliament asked him why, and he told him, that I'm working around making this boy somebody in future. So I don't know what he wants to do that, but at least he has given me opportunity.
He's giving you a platform.
And a platform.
Another challenge that I see, Mheshimiwa, is maybe the lack of clear definition on this word disability. When you say persons with disability, who are we talking about? Albinism, visual impairment, what degree of visual impairment, what physical, what exactly are we talking about? You see, gender, we clear. It's
even nowadays, even gender is not even clear.
Well, nowadays it's getting grey, but for the most part in the country, gender is clear.
No, of course, disability keeps on evolving. There are so many now forms of disability. You are right that the initial and the original definition of disability has really evolved, and now there's so many other factors that are now defining disability. That's why even as a friend of mine, I'm in Parliament, she was involved in an accident, and after 2 months, I saw her with a disability certificate, and now since then again, she got healed. So
what happened to the certificate?
You can use it when you need it.
So, given certificate, it doesn't have an expiry date.
No, but seriously, what does that mean? What does that mean, getting a disability certificate? What does that mean?
Now, you see, it simply means now you are disabled. But you see, the argument again is, at what point do you get a disability certificate?
Yeah.
It must be really proven that you are permanently impaired.
Yeah.
And so that then you cannot really work on the same basis like others. But then many people are now, because of their own interest and because of the benefits you get with having a disability certificate, many of them are just getting involved in an accident kidogo. They go to the National Council.
That's criminal, isn't it?
It is. It is. But Kenya, it is as it is. So, what do you do?
Let me ask.
That just muddies the waters.
Yeah.
Because here we are dealing with affirmative action.
Yes.
And saying persons with disabilities then must be recognized in a different way. And so we must support them because of the historical lack of recognition. We have a council, we have a ministry, a state department that's been told you shall focus also on the matters of disability. And then somebody just goes and casually acquires a certificate.
Yeah, but I think, of course, the only biggest problem for me, these people, they get those certificates, but again, they cannot associate with themselves with the disability.
Yes.
So they're not even adding value. The only value they're getting is to themselves, is individual value, not the collective benefit of the larger disability agenda. Some, even at the National Assembly, even at the Senate, you'll be surprised the number of members of Parliament who have the disability certificate, but they cannot show it. They cannot show it.
Mheshimiwa opened that particular gate when he talked about Kenya being Kenya. When you have people with certificates of disability, it's like they need legal proof that they are disabled. The question is, why do you need legal proof that you are disabled?
For what reason?
There has to be a reason. And what are these reasons? And if it's Kenyan, as we say, the reasons must be beneficial to you. Now, let's go back to the Constitution. What does the Constitution lay out? What is it within the acts that deal with people with disabilities? What are some of, if I may call them, affirmative actions that are supposed to accrue to people who live with disabilities, Mheshimiwa?
Thank you. I think Article 54 is very clear in terms of who is disabled, or rather who is a person with disability. Article 54, and even within the Article 260 of the Constitution, in terms of the interpretation of various things within the Constitution, it clearly also defines disability. And further, there's also the Disability Act of 2003, which we are in the process of again amending. So, of course, there's a couple of benefits that are provided to persons who are disabled, or rather who are living with disability. Of course, when you're a civil servant, you are exempted to around 150,000 of your salary. That one, you don't lipa ushuru. Hata kama Kenya ushuru imepanda kidogo. You can import a car. You can do business without really paying these many licenses and all that. So many people, I think, really join disability not because they believe in the agenda, but because of those benefits that accrue when you are legally identified as a person with a disability.
This bothers me very much because, again, there's this fight, not just folks who are with disability, but folks who are also trying to make sure that they're included and that we have an inclusive society. So like you say, there are those who identify with a disability in order to get the perks that come with it, but wouldn't identify it to actually legislate for certain things to actually be done. So it seems really corrupted in terms of practice that this actually is the case. These are the same people that we are hoping would actually make things a little bit better for people living with disability around the country, whether it's children of school-going age, whether it's people who are in the employment sector, whether it's people who are in business who need a little bit better, whether we're looking at facilitation and making sure that there are ramps, all kinds of legislation in place. But we say we're not going to really think about it because there are other things to think about, but we can think about it when I could benefit, like I could bring in a car tax-free, so let me identify with you up until that point. And these are legislators. So where are we really in the fight to make sure that we have an all-inclusive society? And unfortunately, we may have to throw it back into you. I mean, unfortunately, we have to throw it back to you because these are the people that we are depending on to essentially put laws in place so we have an all-inclusive society.
Yeah, I think of course, it's a sad state of things.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not again in the National Assembly alone. That's just a few. But it's all these sectors of for society. And that's why we are closely working with the National Council to be able to tighten up the procedure and the process of somebody being cleared and clear to get that certificate of disability. I think we've had some loopholes in the system. That's why we're having this problem. But we are working. Actually, I'm a member of the Parliamentary Disability Caucus, and we've held several meetings with the National Council to just see how we can be able to tighten up those loopholes within the procedure of disability registration. And of course, it is also important to tell our people that really it's unfair that today you are not disabled or you don't have a disability and you want to privately identify yourself with disability, but in public you don't want. That's even is more or less calling a curse to yourself.
Yeah, and essentially, because this is what we're talking about today, for example, we're looking at a story in Mweshimiwa that came out whereby the National Union of Teachers, for whatever reasons, are insisting that there should be an increased amount for capitation for children. Those with special needs come in directly here and saying, look, increase this money at the secondary school level to 35,000 shillings. If that were to be taken into consideration at the ministry level, it would have to come back to Parliament for legislation. And we're saying that the same house essentially does not really dance with the idea. There's some far removed notion, except when it's to the benefit. So I think we're living in a warped society, and it's something that we really have to take into consideration because, as you have said, disability, and many have said, disability does not mean inability.
That's right.
And there are many lines that we should then be able to open up when it comes to some of these things. How do we bring it back to, to whom then can we depend on to ensure that these things are actually done?
Yeah, but I think really it will also be unfair for us to verify the whole National Assembly or Parliament.
Oh, of
I think
course
there are just few individuals. That,
unfortunately, it's one apple that spoils the bunch. It's just one that you need.
In any market, everybody is not good. You must also get one or two people. Even in your own house, when you have around 3 to 4 children, there are those children, when you have visitors in the house, you send them to buy you something in the market so that, because you know their behavior. They cannot sit with visitors. So, it happens. It happens. But I think...
well, you've raised a very important... Why do we send them away? Why don't you want them to mix with the visitors? Because it's not even children. Even when you have funerals, There are people who are given special attention and moved away.
Yes.
And those are close relatives, a brother or sister. Why don't we want other people to see them?
Because we know them.
Because we know them and we know their behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see, it's not that we're picking on members of the National Assembly. It's what they represent is so important.
Exactly.
That when we find something is amiss in their midst, you see, it resonates more because it is seen by more people. And if it's an example-setting gesture, then it's greater. But even more importantly, dude, I want to try and answer the question. I know you asked Mheshimiwa, but please, with your permission, may I try and answer it?
Oh, please go ahead.
If you look at the Persons with Disability Act, see, people tend to look at the physical disability. It includes mental disability. What we're discussing here is mental disability. You say warped. When people take something that is intended to benefit others who don't have the same advantages as you, physically or mentally, and then you who is well, take that, there's something wrong with you. There's something fundamentally wrong with you. So at some point, they may not have started off being disabled, but at some point, they are disabled.
They need to be certified as such.
Yes, they do need, and they need care. Because if you are in a position where you are supposed to be the one who is the vanguard of assisting people, and then you're taking advantage of that situation, what do we call you and where do we place you? How do we look at you? Because you're representing the worst possible things that one can see, and you don't have to be a Mheshimiwa.
No.
As Mheshimiwa has said, no. If indeed you were where you are well, you have not had any impairment, and you acquire one in the course of life through injury and you recover, and you still want to present yourself as such, there's something really wrong with you. That person needs help.
That's true. Mheshimiwa, you talked about the Parliamentary Disability Caucus. How many members are you?
Okay, currently those elected as members of National Assembly and have a disability, they're around 8. And of course, we have these members whose, by virtue of their children or their wives or some relatives within their own nuclear families who have disability, they always find reason to associate themselves with the Disability Caucus. So when you talk about those ones, we might be around 20 members of the caucus. And I'm happy our chairman is Honorable Tim Wanyonyi of Westlands, and many of us are there. And so I think really I'm happy because...
So 20 members of the Disability Caucus in Parliament.
Yes.
That's a substantial voice.
Actually, it is.
In terms of leadership of the various departmental committees or oversight committees, how are you represented?
Let me be honest that unlike probably when we were at the county assembly where we could sit and probably say this one is getting this one is getting this one. At National Assembly it was a bit difficult when we were coming in because it was more of the top party leadership that
was making the decision
who will be what and who will be what. But I'm happy that after all that, we had a sitting with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Right Honorable Moses Masiko Tangula, and he has also tried to push for the inclusion of a good number of members of the caucus into various key committees of the House. Because I think one of the biggest problem is issue of the budget. You realize that while many other departments, their budget is increasing, the budget of the National Council of People with Disabilities is stagnant. While our needs are increasing, while the cost of living is increasing, still our budget is still where it was almost 5 years ago. When you come to even to the county governments, there are things that are devolved and are of importance to people with disabilities. Healthcare is devolved. One of the biggest challenge to people with disabilities is healthcare. And healthcare is devolved. But there's no deliberate plan or program to support the access to healthcare of people with disabilities by the county governments. And so, at least I'm happy Speaker has been able to give us that platform to speak to various arms of government, so that then they can be able to be alive to the fact that, they also needs, while they speak about these other issues, they must also be able to speak on the issue of people with disabilities.
Yeah, indeed.
And so I'm hoping that even the Disability Act, that by virtue of the 12th Parliament having whose term came to an end, that bill almost collapsed. But Speaker has accepted that we need to revive it, so that then we can be able to push it to its logical conclusion and see it being amended and being acceded to. Because I think the old act, the 203 Act, is not really. It's not alive.
It's not up to the times.
Current.
It's not attuned to the constitution
people with disabilities. So I
and
think
the days of today.
I'm happy that Speaker has given us that platform, and even when you look at even like on our side, of course, I'm a member of Kenya of KK. When you look at the Yala team members who are elected to go to Yala, at least our friend Sankok is there. Who is, I think you know him, with disability, physical disability.
Yep.
When many people even thought it's not possible for a person of our kind to hold a serious position in the government, President William Ruto appointed my good friend Maura as government spokesperson. Even many people still really doubt how it worked out, how possible was that. So I think really KK has demonstrated that it's also possible to have persons with disabilities.
So back to my question, Mheshimiwa. Is any member of your caucus a chair of a departmental committee?
No, to be honest, none of us.
A vice chair of a departmental committee?
None of us are chair, none of us are vice chair. But I've said, because of the discussion we are having, many of these committees, their lifespan is 2.5 years or 3 years, which now, probably by next year, we'll be reviewing the membership of these committees, which I'm so sure that this time around, many of us will find ourselves in those positions. So,
what makes you so sure, Mheshimiwa?
Because, at least I'm around the Speaker, so I know his mind and thoughts.
The reason why I ask you this question, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of the agenda that relates to women in this country and the torturous journey it has taken, and then what the Constitution did for that journey. It gave it a proper jolt. Because the moment you have women rep, meaning whether you like it or not, there are going to be women, a large number of them who are specifically there. Now, if I look at that jolt and I look at how it is, the nomination aspect of representation is given to people living with disabilities, I see an unfairness.
That's true.
The line of questioning that I'm picking is, this is everybody's responsibility to talk about the disability and to push the disability agenda, but it needs a champion. And the champion that I see is those in positions of leadership, such as yourselves, the members of the Disability Caucus of the National Assembly, others at national level, judges of the High Court, judges of the Court of Appeal, government spokesmen, and others, to champion this cause and push a certain agenda so that this agenda is clear. So, for instance, you started by telling us we are, as a country, not really sure how many people you're talking about when you talk about disability. We have a census, we have persons with disability, we've got record taking every day by government, but we still don't know who we are dealing with.
Kenya
how you're
National Bureau of
advocating for
Statistics
such
does that, yes.
to be one of the entry points. Do we know, have we clearly defined disability? Do we know how many people have disability in this country? Then do we know their needs? And then you can then push into budget and budgetary allocation for the council. If the council is not adequately resourced, or if the council is not even adequately established, then the agenda then continues. It sounds to me like, because the question today is, are we doing enough? I'm starting from that. Are you doing enough?
The problem for me, the problem started at the time when you were adopting this constitution. See, when you read Article 81, it's clear that there'll be, I think, a third of either gender, either appointed or elected must be
not more than 2/3.
Not more than 2/3 of either gender.
Yes.
So, I don't know. That's when it comes to people with abilities, they say 5% of either appointive or elective persons in the Republic of Kenya should be people with disabilities. But again, they give it another rider. They say that should be progressive. So when it comes to gender, there's no progressive. It is, they talk about shall. It's a must. But when it comes to disability, it is progressive. That's where the problem is. And that's why today, if you nominate one person out of the 12 nominees in the National Assembly, that fits well within the provision and the spirit and the letter of Article 54. But when it comes to gender, it's clear that it should be
not more than 2/3.
Yes. So that is where the problem is. And that's why today we are unable to solve the problem of the county assemblies. There are around 20 county assemblies who do not have a disability representative in the county assembly. Around 20. I remember 2013 when we were coming in, because we were at that time at the center of lobbying across the political parties. At that time I was still working with the disability organization in Nairobi. And we were at the center of that, of lobbying various political parties to nominate people with abilities. And that time we had around 73 persons nominated in various county assemblies to represent people's abilities. But when we left now, at that time, when I went to Bungoma as MCA nominated, Maura came in as
Senator.
Was it Senator or National Assembly? I think it was in the National Assembly. So a good number of the champions left the sector. And that's why when you came in 2017, that number reduced almost by half. And 2020 now it's a bit worse that a good number of counties do not have a person with disability totally. And so the issue is our own constitution.
Who's the champion? My question.
Yeah,
Who is the champion?
Of course, a champion is all of us. Me, you know.
Yeah, because that was the question. Is
disability,
it only people
the challenge with disability is a club.
Yeah.
Today, you are the way you are. Tomorrow, you're in the club. You're disabled.
Yep.
The only people who are permanent is me. Sabu.
So then it cannot
change. Even prayers cannot change me. So
then it cannot only be folks with disability who can champion the cause for disability in the country.
Really.
It should not be.
Not really.
In fact, it's far more effective when membership has nothing to do, isn't confined rather to people who are living with disabilities, because if you leave that to be championed only by those living with disabilities, there's a point at which it will not resonate with those who do not believe and understand that they have disabilities.
And
my argument is actually the other way around.
In fact, even me myself, to be honest, in Western Kenya, our primary mandate as legislators, which is not legislated anyway. In law, our primary mandate is representation, oversight, and budgeting and all that.
Legislation.
But in practice, our primary mandate is funerals and attending of funerals. If you don't attend, you can go home just because you have not been attending funerals and fundraising for churches. And so, go to a funeral and just take 5 minutes to talk about disability. Nobody listen to you.
What do they want to hear?
These are the things.
What?
Yes, which means have you dealt with your traditional beliefs around disability?
And that's why I'm telling you that there's still much to be done in terms of changing the perception around disability. That disability has not yet occupied the center and the integral discussion of our country. Today you can discuss about women and people will clap for you. People will listen to you. But go and talk about disability and how they need to be supported and included. People even will sit you down because, see, you're wasting their time. It's not that even me, as a representative, I must balance between speaking about disability and also now speaking on the issue that my people want to hear.
It's because you're a lone voice, I think. Siti, when we were talking about HIV on Friday, you reminded us about the FACES program and what you were working on.
Yes.
And the impact that having people who are HIV positive had, just including them in conversations in the community.
Yes.
Right? So it brings everybody on board. And also, it's easier for you to recruit other members of the community who are not infected or affected, or those who are just associating with.
Correct.
It's the same argument I'm having. I think this disability agenda has got to have people with disability at the front and then recruit supporters. It's easier for you to recruit supporters who will come in and will speak about it, will shout about it. But people who have that forefront, just like you told us, people who are living with disability, people who have a disability, or people who know somebody, a close family member who has a disability, you're speaking from experience, then you recruit other people. If we don't have such kind of a cohesive conversation, loud, properly organized, constantly talking about these matters, constantly talking about the budgetary allocation, constantly talking about how much as a country we are losing by just, looking at disability in a certain way, this agenda doesn't agenda.
That's true.
That you have an act that deals with it was an introduction.
Yes.
Just look at how long the agenda of women's rights and women's position, affirmative action, just look at how long, decades, that the agenda has been on the table. If it wasn't, it would never have found its way into the Constitution.
That's true.
It's not something you whisper about.
That's true.
You see, that people don't want to talk about issues around disability means the people with disability are stigmatized. And they'll be avoided. And when they're avoided, anything to do with them, you want the briefest possible moment with it, and then you want to move on to other things. And yet, you have relatives who are not albinos, correct?
Yes.
You have friends who don't have albinism, correct? Now, this is where you recruit the members from. Because they are very willing to benefit from whatever it is you want to do. But it isn't what you do. It is understanding that difference doesn't make you a lesser human being. Yes.
Yeah, and I think, you see, that even in church, those who are saved many years ago, sometimes they tend to lazy around pushing the agenda of their church than those who came in, those who are saved.
The new recruits.
So I think I think you are right, Latiff, that we need to recruit new people, new champions.
Yes.
To really be able to bring synergize our cause, bring in new energy and new push to be able to push the disability agenda forward. But I think really, for me, one thing I'm happy that even all said and done, we have achieved a lot.
Oh yes, you
as a
have.
sector.
Oh yes.
Today, before our election and nomination as MCS and members of the National Assembly, there are many parents out there who used to give birth to children with albinism, and they could not really see this as children. They could want to throw them away, they associate with them. But today, by virtue of Martin being in the National Assembly, Mora being government spokesperson, Mombe Gugi being in the Court of
Appeal,
I can tell you, today the perception has really changed.
Yeah.
It has.
And for me, we might speak about all these other things. The biggest problem with disability agenda is the issue of the perception, of the public perception
That's true.
around us,
That's true.
which for me has tremendously changed.
Many strides are being made.
Has changed.
Keep making those
Keep
strides
making them.
and
Let me
don't
tell you,
turn back.
you know-
Because just like you said, Mheshimiwa, the fact that you can be elected in a constituency, it tells you that those people do not look at you and think, oh, albino.
Yes.
Maybe some political leaders may have looked at you and thought,
Aye.
an albino will not be elected. But you proved them wrong.
Absolutely.
Once,
Twice.
and not just you alone. Thank you very much for joining us today.
But I think just to, in conclusion, and that's why the issue of the terms around personal disabilities are also important, and that's why people with albinism, and when you term them albino, it's in self derogatory, and that's why this person is a person. So that's why we always talk about persons
With
albinism.
Mheshimiwa, thank you for joining us. Martin Pepela is the MP for Webuye East constituency.
Thank you so
Keep
much.
it here. More conversations coming up.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.